Orly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you.
You ready? Okay, let's call this meeting to order. If everyone will stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, it's too high.
Council has their agenda in front of them. Any changes or motion that we approve?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
This is Brian Caskey. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any announcements this evening? No announcements. We have one public comment via email. Anyone else? No? Okay. Daniel's going to read that for us.
Thank you, Mayor. We received an email this afternoon at 3:50 from Betty Dorn addressed to Town Council. Dear Town Council, is it possible for the agendas and minutes of all board and committee meetings be posted on the town's website?
Okay. To the consent agenda. Is there a motion that we approve the consent agenda or any questions about the consent agenda?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
It's Brian Kimball. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
To the regular agenda, item A is the vehicle charging station grant application.
Okay. Before you this evening, you have a staff report that outlines electric vehicle charging stations. You may remember this came up last year with the Volkswagen settlement with the state of North Carolina earmarks several $1 million for alternative fuels, and some of that money is being funneled into the state for electric vehicle charging stations, specifically level 2 chargers. These are chargers that are basically a step up from what you'd have at your house. Depending upon the capacity of the vehicle that's charging, it can be charged in a few hours. And so the RFP, or request for proposals for organizations, businesses, nonprofits, local governments to apply for this funding was announced in December, and the town has, we attended the workshop on the instructions and all that kind of stuff. The application is due January 25th. So this evening we're seeking some authorization to apply for that grant. This was not commit us to accepting any money or actually building anything. This would just be to apply for the funding. And the funding is $5,000 per charging port. So if you imagine like a gas pump that would have a charging cable on either side of it, the minimum requirement is to have at least 2 charging ports. We would look at doing 4 stations, which would be, 2 stations, 4 ports, one on each side of each station. Out here in the parking lot, kind of where staff parks right now. And the grant will fund $5,000 per port up to $25,000. And that funding can go towards the acquisition of the charging stations themselves, the labor, the construction, the conduit, basically anything associated with the construction of and installation of those ports. So again, in summary, the grant is up to $25,000. If we do not have a cost estimate at this point, one is being developed for us by the same folks that installed the solar panels on the building. Given the pandemic, supply chains have been disrupted a little bit, so they're having some issues getting quotes, but they are aware of the deadline of the 25th and will give us a number by then. We had budgeted this tentatively for the capital improvement plan for next year. We do have funding remaining from the work on the maintenance building that could be used to cover this expense if the council so desired. But again, at this point, we're not seeking any funding. We're seeking authorization to apply for the grant. And that's what I recommend council move forward with.
Just to follow up is that whenever we started specking out the maintenance building, it was supposed to run conduit while they was laying the block and pouring the concrete to go out towards the parking lot for the 2 charging stations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they've done that, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Also, is that there was supposed to be, that's another reason that we put our own power meter
Mm-hmm.
into the maintenance building,
Right.
because we thought that we would do this
Mm-hmm.
down the road.
That's right.
Just a little,
Yes, and the box and the panel in the maintenance building was sized accordingly to support connecting us to it. So yes.
Daniel, do you mind, do you know enough about the charging stations to talk about the level 1, the level 2, and the level 3? Is that,
Kind of.
oh, okay.
I'll tell you what I know.
Okay, that's fine.
Level 1 or the standard charging port is if you buy your standard sedan that's electric, you plug it into your regular household outlet at home, and it would take 8 to 10 hours to charge. Most people would do that just overnight. The level 2s are a step up from that, and they can charge a vehicle in less time, typically 2 to 3 hours, again, depending upon the vehicle make and how much power it can draw, because it might be limited by the vehicle itself. And then there are the next level up. I can't remember the technical name for them, but they can charge in basically 30 minutes and require a little bit more power to be able to push that out. And those are not as universal, which is why we're looking at level 2, because that's a much more universal port. And if your vehicle does not have the adaptable, or if the charger is one type of connection and your car is a different one, adapters are available, and typically those are actually available at the charging stations themselves. They're physically attached to it, and you just pop it on whatever car you have.
And there are multiple different types of chargers. For instance, out of the Land Sky offices where they have the MPO meetings, I'm out there once or twice a month. They have ones that have solar panels on them. So they're actually powering these things using solar power. So, we'll have a number of different options, but it's, all along, one of the things that's been very attractive about this is that the state, with the money that came through the Volkswagen settlement, will pay for up to 100% of the cost of the charging station. So it's really a no-brainer. We can choose to move forward with this, see how much we get offered and what the different options are, and then make a decision at that point. So that's what I would recommend doing.
Because getting the grant doesn't obligate us to anything.
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't see why we would not pursue it.
Is that, just another little side note, is that if we do this, I would like for it to be a no charge
Mm-hmm.
to the users.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, this is going to attract people to the park, and they have to come and stay a few hours. So I think it's a real good thing for us, just to attract people here. Also, it's going to show up on maps, because people who own these electric cars, they are going to show up with it. Okay, if I'm traveling from so-and-so to wherever, where can I stop and charge my car? So it's going to be something that attracts people to come here and spend a little bit of time. It does. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a requirement in the grant specifications itself, is that the stations are networked, meaning that they're available, internet access is available, so they can show up on all those maps. So we would make sure that that's completed.
So if everybody's okay with it, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that we accept staff recommendation and move forward with the application.
Brian Campbell, second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, item B is the Mills River Brewery lease on the Banner Farm Road property, which we started discussing the last meeting.
Yes, this was presented to you last meeting in December. There were some requested changes regarding the parking of food trucks on the town's property that is not allowed given the revised language in the lease. And we sent this back out to you a couple of weeks ago. If you've not had a chance to go through it, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We have provided this to the operators of the brewery, and they're in agreement with it as well.
Looked fine to me. I didn't have a problem with it.
I appreciate the people making the changes
Mhm.
that I requested. I'm fine with that, and I'll make a motion that we approve this lease, have the mayor sign it, and scratch this off our list.
I'll second that motion. This is Brian Caskey.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor? None opposed. Okay, item C is a budget amendment for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Is that Sue?
Yeah, while Sue's getting her mic set up, just a quick introduction to this. You remember back in August, the CARES Act money became available. And when that was, when we put that request together, sent it to the county, that was a reimbursement arrangement. So we spent the money out of the town's budget and the revenues are coming back in. And I'll let Sue give you the details on the accounting for all of that. Sue, whenever you're ready.
Well, as Daniel said, we applied for 61,200 in expenses. We have already spent all of it, except for a couple of thousand for, we're going to replace the window in front of Patty's reception area and make a larger area for people to write checks on. And that's on back order. In order to, well, and I'll tell you this, we've been reimbursed on 32,000 of it to date. And I understand the county's got another large chunk of it in the pipeline. So we should be seeing that soon. In order to track all of this easily, we created a line item in each department and moved everything. Once we started doing this, we moved things into those line items and then continued to post to those line items. Only problem is because they were created after the budget started, after it had already been approved, we have no budget on these line items. We didn't want to address it until we knew how much we would need in each line item, but we're technically out of compliance with state law. So I'm proposing a budget amendment that would put budgets on these line items. All of the expenses will get posted into our revenues. I mean, all of them funds will get posted into our revenues and won't offset these. So they have to have something there. Because we haven't had a planner, we're rating the planning budget for to replace some of the funds that the park has spent, because they've spent the majority trying to upgrade fixtures and have staff do extra cleaning. For what am I trying to say? For admin, we rated the contingency budget. Hopefully that won't be a problem later in the year. And planning was only about $117, and that was just for some equipment, like a camera, and so it wasn't a big deal. But anyway, if anyone has a question.
I do not. Okay. Anybody want to make the motion to adopt the budget amendment?
I'll make that motion to accept the budget amendment as Sue has laid out for us here.
Brian Kimball, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Thanks, Sue. Item D is the Southern Mountains Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So the resolution before you would adopt the South Mountains Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, which was developed over the last couple of years. This was really handled by Henderson County Emergency Services folks, in conjunction with all the municipalities within the region. It includes more than Transylvania County, excuse me, Henderson County, and some neighboring folks as well. And basically the main reason to do this is to ensure that should there ever be a natural disaster, the town is eligible for reimbursement from the state or federal government. And so I did not provide a copy of the plan to you because it's over 500 pages long. We did email it a while back. You're welcome to read through it. There's a lot of substance. There's also a lot of supporting documentation in there. I've read through it. I feel comfortable with it. So I'm recommending that you adopt the plan as it's been drafted.
Anybody?
I'll make a motion that we approve the South Mountains Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Brian Caskey, I'll second.
All those in favor? None opposed. All right, item E, the Making Mills River Comprehensive Plan presentation.
With us tonight, we have Alan Steinbeck, who's been helping us with this plan since the beginning. He's going to run through a presentation on how we got to where we are, and we're going to go over the land use map that we've put together in conjunction with the steering committee and talk about where we're going from here. So Alan, I'll hand it over to you in just 1 second to pull up the presentation.
Great, thank you. I'm privileged to be working with you all on this project, and I've had enjoyed meeting the stakeholders here in Mills River. We've had some good feedback from the groups that have been overseeing it, some good public comment. I believe you all had an update on this project in October, your October meeting, but we've made a lot of progress since then. Some of you have seen bits and pieces of this through your involvement in various things. But we wanted to talk about where this stands and really go over the schedule, because now that we're in calendar year 2021, we'll be wanting to move towards an adoption schedule pretty quickly. And some things are coming together that need some review and some oversight. So this is a quick presentation to give you a status report. There's 3 things on the agenda: the schedule and status of the project, the document structure and some conversation about the content of it, and then the land use vision map, which is one of the more recent things that we were trying to roll out and have people view. On the schedule, the things that we have done since that report that you all had on October 8th include going to the advisory committees for the town to talk about this project and talk about the public feedback that we got and the policies. We worked with the steering committee on the text. They were given draft text in November, and the steering committee for this project reviewed that text and helped us refine the policies and strategies in the document. We've been to the planning board now, giving them an overview of the project, and now have given them the text of the document as well for their review and comment. So we've gotten to the point now where you all are next on that list of boards that need to get that text, but we're not submitting that tonight. What we plan to do is to, after tonight, work with you on the 28th, where there's time scheduled during the workshop that's going to be held over this 2 days, to talk about the plan. And at that time, we will be giving you a sense of the text of the document and have that available to you at that time. And then we go through a formal process of back to the planning board steering committee and preparations for a public briefing that's going to be held on February 4th, where we're going to talk about the comprehensive plan and some of the other town's initiatives in a joint meeting with the master plan folks, and to talk about some of the policy changes that are in the works for the town, so that people have a chance to see what's going on and be informed about the progress that's being made on those things. And then we'll have comments due from anyone and everyone, from public boards, elected officials or appointed ones, at the end of February, so that we can prepare for the planning board to review the project on the 6th and give you all a recommendation after that. So as to the structure and content, a reminder of the purpose of this thing. The comprehensive plan is a guiding document for managing and shaping growth and development. It includes a vision for the future and a policy framework. It is something that it's adopted and official and the town can implement it, but it is not a regulatory document like the Code of Ordinances. It's sort of in that in-between space between regulation and non-binding policies. It's a guidance document. It meets the requirements of the state. The state requires the town to have an adopted plan in order to enforce the zoning ordinance. So the comprehensive plan is kind of like the mothership enabling document for the zoning ordinance and the land development regulations of the town. So it's important in that sense. It also anticipates future needs for infrastructure, and it provides some guidance about where growth and development is going to be, where the town might want to invest in things like parks and other types of services, but also where the town might want to be involved in emphasizing infrastructure and having growth go where you want it to go, and also preserving the rural character of the town where you don't want it to go. So it's important for those reasons. The structure of the document includes several elements. There's adopted text policy, which has the vision and goals and the objectives policies by element. There's an action plan, which is an implementation section that has strategies and performance metrics, and then a series of maps and other reference materials that go along with it. And then in terms of associated initiatives, the comprehensive plan does have a role in guiding the policy of the town if used correctly. In terms of annual budgeting process, the town would consult the plan's recommendations to see what needs to be budgeted, what types of capital improvements might be needed. And it also is used as a place where you can adopt things by reference, like the master plan, like a transportation needs plan, which is a to-be developed item that we're going to do, and also is used as an implementation tool. So the plan calls for things like a cultural resources inventory and a natural resources inventory, which will be an important part of understanding those areas of the town that we want to try to conserve and protect as we review development. Within the plan itself, there's a hierarchy of things. The elements are the organizing topics of the plan. Within each element are objectives, which show the stated desired outcomes for each of those. And then under that are policies and strategies. And the objectives and policies are the officially adopted policies of the town. And those are the things that provide policy guidance. When you get a chance to read this and you see the strategies, that is the action plan and the implementation plan. So that is not adopted policy, but it's recommended action steps that are to be made to implement the plan itself. Some of the strategies include having performance metrics so that the town can see how we're all progressing in meeting the goals of the plan. And that includes things like the pace of development, where it's going, is development going where we're trying to target it, and what's happening in the areas that we're trying to protect. There's some call for improved procedural and code compliance guidance in there. Agricultural conservation is called for, and there's some work to be done there to define exactly what the town's role is in that, but it does call for the town to do that. We have a little bit about workforce housing and minimum housing standards, and then an energy audit as well is talked about. And also relating to those things that I talked about a second ago, the capital improvements planning, transportation planning, parks and rec, calling out to do some town center evaluation of where further town center development might be, including additional town facilities and where they might go and how they might be designed and what goes with them. So onto the land use vision map. We started out by thinking about and trying to respond to what we heard from the community, and pretty much everyone else was wanting to preserve the rural character of town. And we wanted to acknowledge that there are areas of town that were already developed. There are areas of town that are fairly rural and undeveloped. And we wanted a vision map that set the vision for the future of how we wanted the town to grow and develop. So we identified this this topic of targeted development areas and wanted to try to see if there were places where we logically wanted to have the town accept growth and development, and other areas where we didn't. And so in this case, the blue and the the grayish green were the two places that we saw were the most rural and the most likely to be preserved. And the other sections, and especially the red one in the middle and the green one, where we have industrial zoning, were places where we thought we would try to accept and possibly even incentivize development in certain cases. So that's where we started. And we went through the process of creating these categories for it. And so we have several different categories in this land use vision map. These are not to be construed as zoning districts or regulatory districts. They're a framework for making decisions. So to give you an example, if someone comes in with a rezoning case and they would like to change from one zoning to a different use, this map can be used as a screening tool to see if that rezoning decision makes sense relative to how the town wants to grow. And so it's in that sense, it's a guidance and policy document. Another example would be if we want to update the zoning or update the development regulations, we look to this vision map and we say, okay, what does the vision map say about what we want to promote, discourage, or allow in these places? And it becomes a guide for developing further policy. So in and of itself is not a policy map that's regulatory, it's the guidance document. And these categories are the means by which we actually make that guidance available by saying there are different types of places that we want to create in the future. The commercial crossroads is down on 280. You'll see those in a second. There are two little nodes along 280 in the southern part of town. Community center is what we're sitting in right now, which is the area in what I call the triangle of Schoolhouse Road 191 and 280 and a little bit of areas beyond. And then industrial employment, which is the northern part of the city. Go to the next one. Mixed residential is largely made up of what is now the NC 30 or the MR 30 category and the MRNC categories. And rural residential includes most of what is in the mixed use district and also some of the other residential areas and some of the conservation areas that we had identified where there are things like flood zones and other natural areas that need to be put in that rural residential category. So that's the pretext of looking at this. That rural residential is now the green area. So this would be the lowest level of development intensity, trying to keep it as true to its current rural place as possible. Contrasting that with the red area in the center of town, which would be the community center, where different types of development is anticipated to continue to be, including commercial, residential, and other types of uses. And industrial and employment focus up at the top in the blue. And the orange would be largely residential, but it would be a slightly higher intensity potential than the green areas of town. So after we went through with the steering committee, we decided to increase the footprint of the green. I think we will be able to see that a little bit, or we won't be able to see the difference between those. But what happened was, we will look in a second at the conservation area and the floodplain as an example of how we came up with this map. But we feel like we've gotten to a point where we're trying to reflect what we've heard from people, which is they want the majority of town to be preserved in its rural state, to try to make sure that we don't develop everywhere, that we develop in certain places. And so we've created these zones to try to accomplish that. Do you have it up? So we've taken this information now and we've created an online map that's interactive. And I really do encourage you all to spend a little time with that and look at it, because you can zoom into your areas of interest and concern and see where these boundaries are. We went down the road of designating every parcel in town a certain use. And I was talking to Bert about this before the meeting. We didn't want to make this a fuzzy map. We wanted to make it a map that had hard lines to these districts. So if we had a rezoning case or something that was very site specific, there was no ambiguity about which part of the vision map one resided in. You're either in one zone or another. So there are some hard lines on this. And what this map is to be available to anyone who wants to review this information, but it does allow you to zoom in and out. It allows you to make comments. And Daniel is setting up the tool that allows you to see how these districts relate to the current underlying zoning. And you can start to see by comparing the zoning to these districts, how this thing has been constructed.
So we'll set this map up that it's easily accessible to the public. I'm just going to show you a little bit of functionality on it. So you see these green dots on the map right here. These are actually comments that people have left after reviewing the map. Like this one says, example, please check on this color. So you can do that by adding a comment over here. And then wherever you place it, it's tied to that specific location. And you can get as detailed as you want. And these are anonymous, so if you want to say something funny, entertain us a little bit, by all means. So just a little bit of explanation on the revisions that you saw. Remember, originally the map had a whole bunch of red right here in the middle, a lot more yellow everywhere else. The first thing we did after speaking with the advisory committee was respect the boundaries of the floodplain and basically lowered the classifications of intensity for areas that were prone to flood. And so you'll see that the properties that are now in green are all the properties that are subject to flooding of some variety. And we did that throughout the entirety of town, even up in some of the more industrial areas. Now, there are instances you'll see where the floodplain overlaps the property just a little bit, but the majority of the property is outside of the floodplain. And so we've kept those as industrial or employment. This one right here is completely inundated, so we left that as is. And you can see when you turn on the zoning layer and the land use layer and you use this swipe function, you can see the underlying zoning district. So we're breaking these out. There's more categories of land use classification spread amongst the different zoning districts. And you can see that by swiping back and forth with this tool.
I would say the two biggest changes here, not changes, but the clarification that this map brings is by differentiating the mixed use district in the north end. It shows it in the color orange, which means it sort of reflects the existing conditions up there that are already that include neighborhoods and sort of a medium density development pattern, whereas it leaves the rest of the district at a lower density. And then in the center of town, the community center red, it consolidates the underlying zoning into that one vision map category, where currently the city has had a tradition of approving light industrial projects and other types of things down there and doing rezonings to that effect. But we've heard a lot about the fact that people would rather not have that be fully built out as industry. And so we're coming up with some ways to provide guidance about prioritizing other uses over industrial uses in that area as the town makes decisions about how to develop it.
I do have paper copies of this map I'll pass out.
And that concludes the presentation. We'll take any questions you'll have on this.
I'm glad y'all enjoy maps.
I just want to make one real quick comment. And for those who are listening, the map did not come about as a result of Alan and Daniel sitting down and trying to figure out what should go where in the town of Mills River. We had public input sessions, and many folks in the town came out to some of these input sessions, and they will remember, I'm sure, the exercise that we did where we took green and red and purple stickers. And we walked over to a map of Mills River and we stuck them on that map and decided, what do you see as being a residential area? Where do you think, mixed use housing should go? What do you see as being a business district? So the genesis of all of this was public input. And when I look at the small tweaks that have taken place over the course of time, I think it makes a lot of sense what we're looking at right here. And I just want to commend Daniel and Alan on the hard work that they've done, and also Shay for the hard work that she's put in along the way. And I know that Randy and Brian Kimball also were part of this process at some point in time. So as we look at this, I just want to remind folks that this is true democracy in action, and the people of this town put forth the ideas that are resulting in this comprehensive land use plan.
Thank you, Brian, for that. And just one more point of clarification. Alan and I are fine tuning this map once more to take into account things in addition to the floodplain. So we're looking to look at steeper slopes. Some of the streams that aren't mapped, not all streams have floodplains associated with them, but they are still subject to stream bank buffers with construction and things of that nature. So this is not the final version. We're going to take one more crack at this and get it back out to all the different boards. But this is actually the third iteration of this map at this point, and we feel it's a really strong start to a future land use vision map.
Can you go back to the schedule, please? Well, is that what I was wondering is that when does it come to us?
So we have the text of the document that
Okay.
we're currently updating to reflect some of the planning board comments that we need to make. But those should be done in a few days, and then we can send this out to you or print a copy and put it in the box, whichever is convenient for you. But then we have the afternoon on the first day of the visioning session allotted to talk about this exclusively, this plan, this map.
So I assume roughly is that on April 6th, roughly,
Mhm.
is that the final draft goes to the planning board.
Right.
So I assume that sometime the 1st of May, give or take.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, the
Okay.
planning board's been involved in this really since the beginning. And we're hoping that when we get them the final product in April, that there won't be a whole lot more discussion because they've already seen it. It's really just sort of one final look at it.
Any other questions? Thanks again for all your work, Alan and Daniel. This is a lot to wrap your head around if this isn't your thing. Okay, so that completes our agenda. Now we're at staff updates. Sue, do you have anything for us?
Only that there's still a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment for a second alternate. I've gone to all the people who have applied for the planning board. Nobody is interested. They've gone from meeting once in 2 years to meeting every month. So this is kind of urgent. I put it on our website. I put it in our monthly update. I really don't know what to do other than to ask you to ask your friends and neighbors. And I mean, it's becoming more of a commitment than it has been in the past, but it's becoming more important that we have another body. We've made some decisions with only 4 people, and you have to have a minimum of 4 people to make these decisions. So we're regularly asking applicants do you want to go forward or do you want to wait and hopefully we'll have another board member available? So anyway, I'm begging and then I'm done.
Okay, we'll keep looking. An update from the tax collector, Arlie.
When you came into the room, you found a second property tax collection report in addition to the one in your packet. The one on the tables when you came in is updated. We got some on-time payments after the original report was done. The state would like me to give you the most correct report possible. So I've given you the second one. So as of the end of business on January 5th, which was the last possible moment to pay on time, we've collected $2,427,477.89, which is 94.33% of the total possible collections. And that's up significantly from last year. I'm pleasantly surprised and pleased. And I hope you are too. If you have
Great
any
job,
questions,
Arlie.
be happy to
Questions?
answer any questions you have.
Nope. Okay.
Thank you, Arlie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nicole, a report from the Parks and Recreation Director.
No major updates, but just if you guys put on your calendars, next Friday, January 22nd, we will host another blood drive here at Town Hall. So if anyone's interested in doing that, we'd love to have your blood. Other than that, we continue to work on the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and we will also have an update for you at the visioning session at the end of the month. So that's it.
On the blood drive, does the Red Cross, they do the antibody testing for COVID, right?
They do.
We
They
promote
put
that
the
on the
blood
website.
that people donate.
Right.
So yeah, if you've been curious if you had it early on, or it's a good thing you donate blood and you get to find out if you've got the antibodies.
Thank you, Nicole. And Daniel, anything else from you?
I'm actually going to ask Alan, do you have any significant development updates that you want to share with anyone? Like, I can't think of any at the moment, but
Mills River Crossing is in their
Cool.
next phase because the water line's starting on my side of the road.
yes, that's continuing. We got the storage people. Summit Storage has been permitted. There's been some other commercial development I'm blanking on at the moment.
Circle K, what's their status?
Yes, they're,
I know the car lot moved.
yep, they've been permitted. I believe their plans are under review at the county. Do you know anything more detailed than that?
I do not. They
Okay.
got some environmental permitting completed, so they're moving through the process. The auto broker that was on the lot didn't move without getting a zoning permit for the new site. So we are working through that. That's the most exciting thing that's happened this week. I was watching them do that and knowing that they were doing that without getting the proper permitting to do so. But I'm trying to help them through that process. And I would say that we are creating a list of permits that have happened. We're compiling some data that goes back to 2017. So in fairly short order, we'll have a summary of all the permits that have been issued by type, by location, so we can see what's happened in Mills River the last 4 years, which has been a very busy 4 years. And this past year was, I think, the busiest yet of all 4 of those. So we had over 200 permits come in the door last year. That was the total. And so you'll have some maps and information on that. But I would say that there's been a fairly strong pace of residential homes being permitted, something like the 1 a week pace that gets you to the numbers we had forecasted for the town. And there's a strong sense of storage, the need for more storage capacity in Mills River for whatever reason. I
First
think
world problems, huh?
it might be a little overbuilt at this point because I don't think they're all talking to each other. I think they're competing for a market that that may be saturated fairly soon, which is probably good news because with us wanting to use our land for the highest and best use of it for economic development, storage facilities don't create a lot of jobs. and they don't really add much value to the world other than having a place to put your stuff. So if you don't need to put your stuff somewhere, they don't confer any benefits to you. So what I think we're going to hope for some different types of things coming in. That's been the thrust for the past several months.
And then we're continuing to work on the text amendments that we talked about with you guys a few months ago. And the planning board is reviewing all of those right now, which leads me to my first update from the manager's report. Is the planning board has invited town council to attend a joint meeting on February 2nd at 6:30. That's the planning board's regular meeting day and time. We've asked someone from the sheriff's office to attend that evening to help answer questions about how they enforce the county's noise ordinance and the potential for them to enforce a town noise ordinance. So we don't need any sort of official action from this board, but we do ask that if you plan to attend, let Sue know. She'll need to advertise for the meeting accordingly if we have a majority of council planning to attend that night. Other updates from management is things are very, very busy right now. Been very pleased with the work on the comprehensive plan. I'm very excited about the recreation plan. I think you'll be very pleased when you start to see those drafts come to you. We have, gosh, it's just been busy. We're a little lost for words right now, but all good.
And then Daniel and I attended we got a tour of the
Oh,
new,
yes.
not Mills River, but Lakeside Produce. Although Daniel did offer them annexation if they were interested. He says he
I
pays
tried.
enough taxes. But that is up and going and pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that was a neat operation.
Washed my hands 3 times.
Yes, they're
I had to
very,
put on suits and hairnets and gloves, and it's pretty neat.
yeah, it was good. There was a nice clean facility. The CEO, some of you probably have met him. He's very energetic. He's very entertaining. So it was nice to get a chance to meet them. And yeah, I did offer them to annex me to town, but no dice.
All right, council comments before we go to closed session?
Daniel, before you got here, is that Jeff started the thing to where, and I think Brian and Shay was here, is that, well, I emailed you about the storage building thing,
Yes.
is that we got a list
Mhm.
that laid out like not individual, not like a house permit or
Mhm.
something like that, but anything that dealt with the variance.
Mhm.
Ron, y'all remember that Jeff done that? Is that,
You talking about providing a list to the council?
yes.
Mhm.
And so is there anything that required more than a staff approval, I guess is the right word? Is that Jeff put on this list. And so is that he provided it to us. So is that, let me give you an example. Is that like variance 2110?
Mhm.
I don't even know if there is a number, but anyway, is that, you remember the thing about the utility setback over on Jeffries Road?
Oh, yes. For the house. over there?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, and so what Jeff would do is that he would say, okay, variance 20-10, setback utilities, something like that.
Mhm.
Would that be hard to do?
That's a great segue. I wasn't prepared to discuss this tonight, but I've been looking into permit tracking software. Right now, as Alan mentioned, we use Excel to track everything, which is very difficult to really pull data out of. It takes a lot of work to get anything useful out of it. And so I was going to come to the council maybe at a later meeting and actually request some funding be reallocated to do that, which would allow us the opportunity to create automatic reports that come to you really as often as you want them. We can do it manually. It's just, to be frank, it's just hard to keep up. It's just hard to keep up with. But yes, it can be done. And I know that I think maybe it was Jeff who had started a page on the planning department's webpage that listed current projects. And just to be frank, it's hard to keep up with it. And we were not staying on top of it, so we took it down.
I was just trying to think of how to answer our questions.
Yeah.
Before we ask them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great idea. I know you all get questions out in public, just as we do when things are happening. And the more we can provide to you guys, I think the better it is for everybody, because then everyone knows what's going on and we're all on the same page. So yes, it's possible. I would strongly recommend that we move forward with some software to help us automate that process a little bit, which I'll be prepared to discuss with you in the next couple of weeks, really, once I have some final numbers. Meantime, I'll try to include that in the weekly reports for you.
So basically you're saying that this would keep us apprised of projects that are taking place around town, and that could be on a weekly or as they come up type basis, or
Yep.
monthly, or whatever.
It could be weekly, monthly, it could be daily. We would just set the parameters as to when a variance application comes in, for example, it would automatically email whoever we want it to email, and that could include all of you.
That would be great.
Yes, it would be. It's a very great way to be able to just keep everybody in the know, really. And some other advantages to that we've really honed in on this year, especially with the tax payments, is the ability to process things online. I'm sure it's hard to put into words how big of an adjustment in a positive way having the tax payments available online has been, because it's cut down the number of phone calls that we get, people trying to figure out what taxes are owed on any given property, because they're able to search online, and people really, really appreciate that option. And I know that we certainly do as well. So this software that we're looking at would allow us the opportunity to do things truly remotely. Right now, we're doing sort of a hybrid where people will email plans to Alan or I, and we'll log into the Excel system and process it a couple different times, and then back and forth comments, but they still have to send in a check or drop off a check or cash to pay for the permit. If we're able to do it where we can process payments online, it just cuts that extra step out really for everybody involved. And I think is a much more efficient way to do permitting, especially nowadays. People are really getting accustomed to that. And yes, the reporting function would be built in, automatic, and really helpful, especially for code enforcement. There are so many steps to code enforcement that you can't reflect in an Excel spreadsheet.
All right, other council comments? All right, then I'm going to make a motion to enter into closed session section 143-318-11 to consult with our attorney. Dr. Helping.
Shay, do we need to add that to the agenda? Just to make
So
it,
did you hear that question? Should we add the closed session to the agenda just so it's reflected for the record?
You can, that's something that the agenda belongs to the board, and so it's fluid all through the meeting if you want it to be. So if you'd like to, I mean, I don't think it's as important at this point as just making the motion. But if you don't mind, because we're going to be closing the public portion of Zoom, if you give me just a minute after you make your motion, I will come over there.
Yeah. Is there so I made the motion. Is there a second? All those in favor of entering closed session?
That was a second by Brian Caskey. So.
Alan?
I saw that. Thank you, Brian.
Jim? Thank you. Feel secure and safe as always.